The history of Chinese painting is the history of one of the oldest continuous artistic painting traditions in the world. It spans the periods of approximately 300 BC to the present. Chinese painting tends to be cataloged according to the dynasties or the different eras of ruling emperors. Chinese painting is made up of two mainstays: Chinese painting and calligraphy. The paintings themselves are traditionally done on rice paper or on thin silk and take the form of scrolls hung on walls. As far as Chinese art in general, its history goes back to the Stone Age and dates to about 10,000 BC. And though there are some Neolithic paintings on cave walls, in the beginnings of art in China, Chinese art consisted mainly of simple pottery and sculptures. At this point, painting was not a thing unto itself, but was a method of embellishing and decorating utilitarian objects and sculptures. It was generally patterns and designs rather than images of objects from real life. The beginnings of Chinese painting proper is generally thought to have begun in the Han Dynasty. It was at this time that artists began to use the human figure as subject matter. Some artists illustrated the teachings of the Chinese philosophers Lao Tzu and Confucius. Some artists showed scenes of daily life or depicted court lives of emperors, their ladies, and imperial animals. During the Jin Dynasty, people began to appreciate painting for its own beauty and to write about art. Painting and calligraphy at this time were among the most highly appreciated arts in the court, and they were often practiced by amateurs, aristocrats, and scholar officials. These were the people who had the leisure time necessary to perfect the techniques and sensibility that were important to do painting. Gu Kaiji is the most renowned of the artists of the Jin Dynasty, the 300s. He's generally considered to be the father of Chinese painting. His paintings were delicate and sensitive and had a strong sense of design and compositional organization. It was at this time that Xu Wei, a writer, art historian, and critic, delineated 6 points to consider when judging a painting. They are sometimes called the 6 laws of Chinese painting. They are spirit resonance, or vitality. This refers to the energy that encompasses the theme, work, and artist. Number 2 is the bone method, or the ways of using the brush. Number 3 is correspondence to the object, or the expression of form. Number 4 is suitability to type, or the application of color, including layers, value, and tone. Number 5 is division and planning, or the placing and arrangement. This corresponds to composition. Number 6 is transmission by copying, or the copying of models not only from life, but also from the works of antiquity. These ideas about painting became highly prized by artists of the time and are still highly valued as a descriptor of what's important to make painting and particularly traditional Chinese painting. During the Tang Dynasty, beginning around 618, figure painting flourished at the royal court. One of the most prominent artists to work with the figure was Wu Daozi. It was mostly because of Wu Daozi that ink paintings were no longer thought to be simply preliminary sketches or outlines to be filled in with color. Instead, they were valued as finished works of art. Another of the artists of the Tang Dynasty who was important was Zhao Fang. Zhao Fang began to bring a higher order of composition to bear in Chinese painting. His paintings of people and animals were elegant and sensitive. His paintings captured the flavor of the women of the Tang Dynasty and of the refinement and sensibility the Chinese culture and mindset were capable of at the time. It was also during the 600 to 900 period, the Tang Dynasty, that landscape scenarios in paintings became more prominent. Two major types of landscape painting emerged. Paintings done in monochrome and paintings done in blue-green or gold-blue-green. In these paintings, the idea was not to reproduce exactly the appearance of nature, but rather to grasp an emotion or atmosphere so as to catch the rhythm and mood of nature. From about 907 to 1279, there were two dynasties, the Five Dynasty period and the Song Dynasty. In the 900s, or the Five Dynasties period, one of the most important artists was Dong Yuan. Dong Yuan is considered a master of both figure and landscape painting. His elegant style became the standard of Chinese brush painting until 9 centuries after his death. From the more philosophical point of view, Chinese painting, because of the inherent Chinese character, tended to show nature bigger than mankind. This expressed a basic philosophical stance of the Chinese mind. Nature was the big force. Humankind was the small force, and was always subservient to nature. This stance stands in stark contrast to the Western approach. Some would say a more egotistic approach, where humankind is big and nature is small. The idea of nature over humankind is a consistent theme in Chinese painting. In the 960 to 1279 era, the Song Dynasty, Fan Quan was an important artist. Fan Quan was known to have said that the only true teacher is nature. To this day, Fan Quan is revered as one of the most important artists of Chinese history. It was towards the end of the Northern Song period, between the years 1000 and 1127, that the poet Su Shi and the scholar officials in his circle took up painting and brought something new. They approached painting with an objective of expressing themselves, of putting their own personal stamp on their paintings. From that time onward, the idea of getting one's own personal voice into the painting became important. Another thing took place that impacted Chinese painting, and that was that Su Shi, being a poet, put his poems into his paintings. This solidified a tradition that continues to this day in Chinese painting. During this same era, Ma Yuan stood out as one of the most creative and innovative artists. He brought an increasingly romantic and dreamlike direction to Chinese painting. He was sometimes referred to as one-corner Ma, which refers to his compositional tendency to focus his compositions in one corner. Were arguably the most innovative in the history of Chinese painting, and were instrumental for many Japanese artists to come later. Another artist famous in this era was Jie Gui. Due to his tendency to focus his compositions on one side of the painting, he was sometimes referred to as one-side Jie. During the Yuan dynasty from 1271 to 1368, the ruling Mongols distrusted the Chinese intelligentsia. They put restrictions on the scholars' opportunities at court. This caused many of the scholar artists to withdraw into seclusion, which created a heightened sense of class identity and individual purpose. This in turn inspired their art. The ideals of the retired scholars may be summed up as individuality of expression and brushwork more expressive of the inner spirit of the artists than outward appearance. An artist of this ilk was Ma Lin. He was the son of the artist One Corner Ma. His paintings showed the tendency of the recluses to use strong brushwork and expressionism over traditionalism. Next on the scene in Chinese painting were four artists that became known as the Four Masters. Huang Gongwang is the earliest and most renowned of the Four Masters. Huang's work, Dwelling in the Fuchun Mountains, is considered one of the greatest masterpieces of Chinese art. Another of the Four Masters was Nizan. Nizan's paintings tended to be delicate and spare. Nizan wrote, "I use painting to write out the exhilaration in my breast. That is all. Why should I worry whether it shows likeness or not?" The third of the Four Masters was Wu Zhen. Like Nizan's paintings, Wu Zhen's paintings tended towards less naturalism and more towards a form of abstract design, focusing on dynamic balance and moving and expressive brushwork. The fourth great master of the Yuan was Wang Meng. Wang Meng was a close friend of Nizan, and unlike Nizan's paintings that were typically thin and sparse, Wang Meng's are thick and dense with forms and details. His brushstrokes piled one on another to produce masses of texture, which produce dense and involved pattern. The Ming Dynasty roughly corresponds in time to the Renaissance in the West. In the Ming Dynasty, the Mongol rulers were ousted and there was a restoration of native dynasties. One of the most important painters of this Ming period was Shen Zhao. Shen Zhao had a very individualistic style. He tended to use lots of details. And though Shen Zhao is most famous for his landscapes, he also created beautiful works depicting flowers, fruits, vegetables, and animals. The artist Wen Zhengming studied under Shen Zhao. Wen Zhengming eschewed official sponsorship of the imperial court and was not in favor of the politics of the time. Wen regarded art and nature as being inseparable and frequently wrote about and painted nature scenes as well as private gardens. During the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1911, the Manchu rulers tended to favor unbridled decoration and orthodox academicism. Yet there were numerous artists known as individualists who carried on the tradition of self-expression and free expressive brushwork.